I'm here today to talk about self-healing in relationship to abuse and addiction. Abuse and addiction, and that's a very big term, but I'm going to narrow the addictions down to the most common addictions that plague us in our society and in our community would be the drug addiction and alcohol and gambling possibly. And I will narrow the abuse down to sexual abuse. All right, so that's what I'm going to focus on, because abuse can be a very big term, and I don't want to try to tackle all that. Matter of fact, even what I'm talking about is a very large subject. So basically, I'm going to share some ideas of what I've learned through living, through professional life, and what I've learned academically. So it's a combination, and naturally when you live life, then you begin to take the techniques and the knowledge, and you begin to formulate certain concepts on your own. So that's basically what I'm doing here today. There are many fine authors and researchers in many fields, and I think all the work that everyone has done is great work. So this is not a contest or a comparison. This is just some other information that I'm sharing that can be put into the pot. If you find this information is useful, naturally please use it. If you disagree with it, at least consider it for a while, because lots of information that we get when we first hear it, we might not agree with it, because we all have our consciousness at a certain point. We look at things at a certain point. But later on, sometimes that information is something that someone said makes sense. And I think we all can relate to that in relationship to our parents, when they said, or grandparents, or aunts and uncles, or other individuals when we were growing up that made certain statements to us that we thought didn't make sense at all. And then later on in life, it made a whole lot of sense. I can think of the movie with David Carradine, the series called Kung Fu, when he goes through various episodes and he reflects back on things that his master said. So this is, in my opinion, I suggest how we should approach all information, even if it sounds totally disagreeable to us. At least consider it. With that being said, I'd like to talk about the mind as I understand it. Everything ends and begins with yourself. So everything that we perceive and we believe is still, we are the ones that are seeing and believing. So it's very important, in my understanding, and I'm seeing it more and more, that you begin to explore, contemplate your own thoughts and your own ideas. I don't think we put enough effort into our own thoughts and our own ideas, because everything comes from the mind, and sickness comes from the mind. The disturbance in the Asiatic or medicine, the disturbance of the shin, as they say. And when I say Asiatic, for the sake of historical purposes and cultural purposes, we understand that the ancient civilizations, that would be a connection of Afro-Asiatic people that many fine historians like Dr. Ivan Van Sertima and Chancellor Williams and Sheikh Anta Diop, and to name a few, and Dr. Yosef Ben Yochanan and Dr. Malachi York, and many, many, many more. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and I can just go on and on, that have pointed to the fact that we are Afro-Asiatic people. So I don't think that we need to belabor that subject, and whether one wants to believe that or disbelieve that, because none of us here, I don't think, have conscious memory of thousands of years ago at this point. So what is most important is what can we do to relieve situations in this moment in time. This is most important. It is important to understand, yes, that the Kemetic people built pyramids and mounds and founded mathematics and forms of sciences. This is very important for inspiration. It's very important for our children to understand that, in reference to knowing that you have a culture and a history, that gives you a sense of self. So past information is important, when we do diagnosis in healing situations, we want to get a history of the person when they come in to know exactly, or gives us more information on how to deal with a healing. So in the respects of a healing within ourselves, it's important to know our history and our personal family lineage. All this information, if you can gather that information, is important for self-esteem. That builds what we call, that's an asset to help build the kidney energy, which deals with self-esteem, self-image, planning, and following through on ideas, because many times we as a group of people and individuals have a hard time completing goals. Even though we start off with many good ideas, somehow along the way we cannot complete the goal. Now, from an idea that you might want to think about, or a concept you might want to think about, is deficiency, psychological and spiritual deficiency, from a Chinese medical point of view, coming from the fact that we get the kidney energy from our parents. That's the foundation, or the battery. What I'm saying is because women historically, and men also, but mostly women historically, for thousands of years have been subject to abuse, meaning rape and molestation. I found in my own personal experiences, professional experiences, of at least 10,000 people collectively that I've done consultations with, from being a social worker, a chaplain, and a intern in the Chinese medicine, that molestation is always usually the under source of problems with people I've seen, and in substance abuse. That matter of fact, substance abuse, I say 100%, especially with women, 100%. Every woman I've talked to has been addicted to various substances they were molested, that I've talked to. And like I say, I can say if I cut that in half, at least 5,000 people. That's me. So if you look at all the other social workers, counselors, and people all over the country, those numbers become very large. All right. And I'm not going to deal with a date because I don't know the date. And historians can argue about various dates, and anthropologists can argue about various dates. I don't really care about the date, but there was a point in time when the matriarchal system was overthrown by the patriarchal system. Globally, except in few isolated tribes. Globally. Because there were matriarchal systems in Europe too. So I just don't want to say. I have said, well, some people say European systems came in over to African systems. I'm not saying that's not true, but on a global basis, the matriarchal system existed from my research in all cultures. So when that happened, you had a brainwashing of the young girls to what you have today through using religion, to where major religions of all types have taken various scriptures and have changed them or given a different commentary to put women in inferior positions psychologically. Okay, some people might disagree with that, and that's fine. But if you look at it very carefully, when I first heard this information, I was outraged and didn't believe it, and was very upset at the person that said it. His name was A.A. Bhairava. I'm going to say his name so that everyone knows who he is. That was the first person in 1979 that said that, and I was so angry I wouldn't talk to him for a year. Because everything I thought I had studied and knew, he shattered it. And the hardest thing was is when I actually tried to prove him wrong, I couldn't. And I thought I was pretty academic and studious, especially when it came to religious subjects. He shut it all down. But whether you want to accept that or not, when the woman is in fear, and the negative emotion that deals with fear is the kidneys, then the baby or the child that's growing takes in all that food, not just the physical food, but the emotional food. Physical food, the emotional food. So when you look at situations where you have arranged marriages, where women are forced to marry someone that they don't want to marry, grief controls, the negative emotion controls the lungs, and if that lungs are deficient, that really, and some people might disagree with that, can really affect the nervous system, especially when you're talking about mental and emotional situations. Fear, again, talked about was the kidneys. Just the anger and the outrage of the fact that I have no control over my life, I have to live with this person for the rest of my life, affects the liver, anger. And the constant thought about this day after day after day after day after day attacks the spleen and the stomach. Just that. So now, before the child even gets here, in the situations of arranged marriage, now I'll speak about different situations. This is one type of situation. Then there are certain deficiencies that are set in motion almost by the time as soon as the child is born. All it takes is certain other external situations to take place, and there's already a deficiency there, so the child's not operating 100%, and then it's easy for them to become very ill and very sick. If it's external pathogens in the air or any type of disease, they become actually ill to this. Not to mention that those psychological deficiencies exist there. In situations where a person has to stay married to somebody, or they get married and decide they don't want to stay married, but they don't want to get divorced because what people gonna think, or what the scriptures have interpreted, that I'm gonna go to hell, or I need to do this, or I have to stay in this situation. The same type of situation happens with the children, or can, in many cases too.
They'll repeat the pattern?
A lot of times women stay in marriages for long periods of time. I've heard this a lot. And the reason why they stayed is because of social, family reprisals and religious reprisals, because of the way religion has been interpreted. And that anger and frustration into the child, and the child many times acts out and has all types of deviant behavior, and is taking on the expression of the mother. Especially in the case of men, because the son takes on the heart and the spiritual nature of his mother, and the female takes on the spiritual nature of her father. And you take on the likeness, mental men of the father and mental women of the mother. So that's why, just a little deviation off this point, many men in our situation today, because they're broken homes, and a lot of times fathers are not there for various reasons. The young man does not know how to actually apply, or doesn't know how to be a man, because the potentials are there that they gather from their mother, but they can't put into action because the father or a male is not there to show the demonstration. That's the mind part.
Okay, now in that instance, what you're talking about. Excuse me. Okay.
I answer you. Let me get everything done, and then I'm gonna take questions. Okay. Thank you, because I lose my trend of thinking. So, what I'm proposing for everyone in the audience, before I get into techniques and what have you, is to think about what I said. Matter of fact, I just saw a book right here, How to Deal with Rape, Molestation, and Incest. Spirituality. I haven't read it, but that looks to be a very good book, probably one of the few that I've ever seen. So, on that subject, I'd like everybody to begin to think about this, and think about all the implications in the society that put women in a negative light, all women in a negative light. Because unless this is changed, this is my personal opinion, that the whole planet is going, if I can use the lyrics of a rock group, ACDC, a highway to hell.
Wow.
You know, and if you look at various scriptures, depending on how you want to look at the interpretation of them, they almost say that. Now, and then I'll say one other thing, I'm going to techniques. If you look at even some of the major systems of religion, because we're so much influenced by religion, it's hard to not talk about that in relationship to healing and health, because they usually go hand in hand in our thinking, in most people's thinking. We find that women are usually and have been the cornerstones and the key points in all the systems that the major systems that most people follow. In nearly every case. Nearly every case. We know the story about Mary, however you want to interpret that, but Mary, whether you say it's 3 Marys, 1 Mary, whether you want to say Mary was his wife, whether you want to say it was symbolic language or allegorical, however you want to look at it, it literally existed. She played a fundamental role, and from my understanding, that if we take the story as we've been told, so I don't want to get into the debates of whether it actually happened or not, because I'm familiar with several different types of stories, but I'm just taking the most common story that most people accept, that I think that when Jesus resurrected, he came and talked to Mary first. All right, so that shows you the level and respect that she had before he even went to the disciples. Now we also want to look at the fact that if God is so great and can create anything, if we say Jesus is the second Adam, why couldn't God just create Jesus and then use no woman? It's interesting he used a woman but didn't use a man. So this is something to think about. I thought about this one day. I said, what's the God trying to say? Because God can do anything, so he didn't have to use no man or no woman to prove a point. He could have created Jesus, and he still could have been crucified on the cross and all that and gave the blood without a mama. So why did he have a mama but didn't use a man? So my thought was, well, maybe God's trying to give a message here. Then I look at the case in Islam, because these are probably the 2 major systems that affect most people in our society. It's interesting that the first person to accept Islam was a woman. But even more interesting is when the angel Gabriel came to Muhammad, he didn't know what he saw. His wife told him what he saw. So somebody come to me and said, I saw something and I don't know what it is, and I told them what they saw, then who has the greater knowledge? And I've always thought that, and when I have posed that question to various Maulanas and Sheikhs, they always get upset and they couldn't give me no answer on that particular question. Because it's common sense to me. If I don't know what I'm looking at and you tell me what it is I'm looking at and what it was, and you must have either seen it before, A, and B, you have knowledge of it, I didn't have it. That means that person must have a greater realization and understanding than the person actually saw it. Just think about it. I'm just looking at things as they are. And I know there are people that they're going to listen to this, they're going to be outraged that I said it. But if you just think about it, it's common sense to me. It's sitting right in front of your face. Now, if we look into the Kemetic system, we know about Asar, or Osiris, and Isis, and the role she played in the resurrection to destroy Set. Whether you want to say Set was a group of people, or Set represent the lower aspect, and that Osiris and Horus and Set were all the same aspects, and that Set represent the lower nature, Osiris represented the human nature, and Horus represented the spiritual nature, and the fact that it took the woman, again, using the energy point, which is that finger, when we see nurturing Horus, to destroy the lower self. That means the energy, because this goes right into the Ajna center. So this is just some symbolism that shows the importance. And for those people that follow the Vedic system, so I just speak on the Krishna system, we see that Krishna spent most of his time with a lot of ladies around. Okay? And we can go on and on. So the importance of the woman in the society is so important, and it's so important for our mental health and our physical health, that if we allow these images, if we allow these attitudes to continue, sickness will rise at even a greater rate, because it becomes accumulative to the point that many women in our society don't want to even have anything to do with me. And this is a cumulative of generations after generations. And I'm sure there are many, many reasons on why this is so. This is just my sharing of why one idea or one concept for you to consider from a health point of view. From a health point of view. Now, one way we can't do anything about what has happened. And we can't do anything about the fact that we're here. We can't do anything about the fact of what our situation in the United States has been for 400 years, 500 years. Those things have happened. And whatever's going on right now, they're happening. As long as we carry past thoughts in our mind and don't release those past thoughts, it's almost like well, I'm from a different age, so it's like a rewound, a record that's stuck in a groove. It becomes stagnation. And stagnation can be the source of what they call, or what we commonly know as cancer. It becomes cancerous because we can't let go of. We can't let go of. We want to squeeze the sphincter muscle and then release and tighten up and straighten up the lower back. The chin is in slightly. The tongue is at the roof of the mouth. The shoulders are relaxed. You want to look at a space about an arm's length in front of you with the eyes open. Now, if thoughts begin to invade your mind, I want you to direct your consciousness back to the breathing or the breath. That's the inhalation and exhalation. And one way to keep that focus is to deal with counting. And you want to count up to 21. So when we inhale, when you exhale, on every exhale you will count. So this is done mentally. Inhale, and then you would exhale 1, and so forth up to 21. If you lose the count, just start again. And this is only if your thoughts override your mind to the point that you can't stay focused. Other than that, you don't have to use the count. We will begin now. Open your hands, put your palms on your knees, and Inhale, bring the shoulders up. And exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. And exhale. Turn the hands to the right. Hands to the left. Open up. Again. Inhale up. And exhale. Inhale up. And exhale. Okay. Now,
you said something that I'm trying to hear, which was, you said that the mother would try to teach the son, but the son needed the father to demonstrate, or something you said like that?
saying we inherit our spiritual powers from our mother, son.
All right.
Symbolism of that could be various views. Symbolism. The son carries out the inner wishes of the mother. The spiritual potentiality that exists, you get that from the mother. But the ability to be able to actualize that on the material plane, you get from the father. So what happens is, in many cases, in our community, we have many young men that have lots of potentials, but they aren't able to direct it in the, first of all, complete goals a lot of times, or direct their energy in the positive manner because they don't have the example of a father or uncle or grandfather or some other older male as the example. Many times, women in our society end up succeeding better, especially in the world of economics and completing school, because they have a mother or aunt or some other woman to emulate, where the men don't have the same. I'm talking about personal emulate. I'm not speaking about personality. So who they end up emulating are, in many cases, because their lack of fathers and uncles and grandfathers interacting with their sons and grandsons and nephews, they end up emulating TV personalities that have been programmed after certain times.
Okay.
That's what ends up happening.
So we have a father. Let's say we do have a father who didn't get the. Let's say the same son who did not have his father around grows up to be a father.
Yeah.
And now he's a father, and he still doesn't know how to emulate. But now his son is imitating him, who doesn't know how to demonstrate.
This is correct.
But I'm trying to get to that.
Yeah, I'm not disputing the fact that if a father has bad or negative behaviors, that his son won't be affected by it. I'm not disputing that. What I'm pointing out at this point is that we inherit the spiritual potentiality from the mother and the actualization from the father. That's the only point that I'm trying to bring out at this point. Now, whether the parents' behavior in a certain way, that's another subject, and I'm dealing with that from the fact that because of years of abuse on women in general, that nearly all people have a certain sense of fear and ability and lack of ability to carry things out because there's a certain innate fear. Now, what happens is with other cultures, they a lot of times succeed because they are adhering to the family codes and the culture of their society, and so they're still operating out of fear. So you taking a base fear, then you putting another mind control in fear on top of the person. You go outside that particular thought pattern and think for yourself, and you can find yourself in many cases killed, or a lot of cases excommunicated from your people. And that happens with other cultures. So what I'm saying is the ability to be a free thinker a lot of times becomes limited because of the fact that there has been a global situation where women have been oppressed. Because if you're going to oppress the women and cause fear, then you can basically, it sets up a situation of mind control or over masses of people. So then when groups of individuals come out and think for themselves, then that becomes a problem. regardless of what that thought pattern might be. But if it's anything outside what is given or what you can follow, that can become problematic. Yes.
Right off the Barnary sub-stop, Philadelphia, PA. Shot so loud you would think it was a club spot. African Americans, although we all over the web, we the hood librarians. We ship to prisons too. We reach out and deliver to those that's bitten too, but it's more than a bookstore. You want it, we got it. Mixtapes, DVDs, and culture products. Black and Nobel got our hands in a lot of projects. We welcome all to come build. The energy is positive. Every member of the team is awake and conscious. Come through and experience this place of knowledge. They say they'll put it in a book if they wanna hide it from us, but we got them books so you can buy it from us. Something to read while you on a train or riding the bus. Get your read on, food for thought, get your eat on. Black and Nobel, I buy my books at Black and Nobel. Black and Nobel, I buy my books at Black and Nobel. Black and Nobel, I buy my books at Black and Nobel. Black and Nobel, I buy my books at Black and Nobel.